The member from Nepean Carleton.
Thank you very much, Speaker. It is my pleasure to join this debate today, not on Bill 10, but on a closure motion to stop this Assembly from debating an issue that will affect 140,000 childcare spaces, affect parents across this province and children throughout Ontario. This bill needs to be debated and it needs to travel across Ontario. So, Speaker, I am standing here before you today not only to say I oppose stopping this bill from being debated in second reading on the floor of this Assembly, but also to suggest to my colleagues that the best way to proceed with Bill 10, the best way to talk about childcare in the province of Ontario, and the best way to talk about the safety of our children is to ensure that we travel this bill. Mothers and fathers like me don't have the opportunity to come to speak on the floor of the Assembly every day, Speaker. They are working. They are spending times in their community, whether that is in Barrie, it is in Oakville, it is in Kingston, or it is in Sudbury. They do not have the opportunity to come to the floor of the Assembly. So on their behalf, as a fellow mother, as someone who also has her child in daycare with a person who is important to my family, I want to speak on their behalf. I have for some time been very critical of this Liberal government's plan to abolish 140,000 childcare spaces in the province. I understand that the NDP have put forward an amendment in order to allow this bill to travel, and for that, Speaker, I'd like to read into the record a petition that 2,000 people in less than 1 week signed as a result of this Liberal Bill 10. And it says, whereas the Liberal government introduced Bill 10, the Child Care Modernization Act, on July 10, 2014, whereas the passage of the bill will result in the elimination of 140,000 child care spaces in Ontario, and, Speaker, increase child care costs by 30 to 40%, especially in rural and suburban areas, and whereas Bill 10 could force licensed daycare providers to close, impacting religious day schools, private schools, and Montessori schools as well, whereas the government has asked for a quick passage of the bill but has not properly considered these repercussions for all Ontario parents. Therefore, we, the undersigned, petition the Legislative Assembly as follows: that the Liberal government conduct province-wide consultation during the 2014-2015 legislative winter recess, at which time the Minister of Education and the Committee on Social Policy will travel across the province to Hamilton, Guelph, Ottawa, Kitchener, London, Windsor, Sudbury, and Toronto to consult with parents and childcare workers to understand how the bill will negatively affect Ontario children, parents, and childcare workers. So I speak on behalf of thousands of parents across this province, their children, and of course those independent childcare operators, licensed and unlicensed, who are afraid that this bill will negatively impact our children. And therefore, with respect to the amendment that I am now debating, put forward by the third party, Speaker, I move that the amendment to the motion be amended by deleting the number 5 and replacing it with the number 7, and deleting as determined by the committee, and replacing it with, in the following locations: Hamilton, Guelph, Ottawa, Kitchener, London, Windsor, and Sudbury.
Thank you.
Last an opportunity for
the member from Nepean Carleton moves that the amendment to the motion be amended by deleting the number 5 and replacing it with number 7, and deleting as determined by the committee and replacing it with, in the following locations: Hamilton, Guelph, Ottawa, Kitchener, London, Windsor, and Sudbury. Yes. Refer back to the member from Nepean.
Thank you very much, Speaker. That's a sub-amendment I believe needs to be very specific, and I'll tell you why, Speaker. I alluded to this in the very early points of my initial speech here to this Assembly. I know other mums and dads in their 30s and 40s are out today working. They're trying to make a living in order for them to pay for their childcare. They have made a conscious decision, these parents, a responsible decision, to place their children in care. They are not able to come to Queen's Park and speak for 10 minutes to a committee at this building here in Toronto. If we are truly engaged with the public, if we are truly committed to engaging our citizenry, we don't always have to do it in a committee room in this Assembly. We should travel this bill. We should travel to talk to those who are affected most by this legislation. When I first spoke about Bill 10, I talked about the fact that there is two things that this government is opposed to. The first is parental choice. The second is parental responsibility. These are both affected by this legislation. These are both affected by this government, and they should both be heard by a committee of this Assembly in each of those communities, whether that is in Hamilton, in Guelph, in my city of Ottawa, in Kitchener, in London, in Windsor, and in Sudbury. The independent childcare operators, whether they are licensed or not, should also have an opportunity to speak to this legislation. But, Speaker, as you're aware, many of them across this great, vast province, the largest province geographically in Canada, the largest province population-wise in Canada, it is impossible, if you're going to affect 140,000 childcare spaces, to bring everyone here that will be affected. The best way to get a proper hearing is to travel this bill to the Speaker's Hamilton, to my Ottawa, to Windsor, to Kitchener, to London, to Sudbury, to places where this bill will affect people. And that is why, Speaker, we put forward the amendment, and that is why I put forward that petition, where over 2,000 people in 1 week signed. Let me read you a letter from a mother in Brampton. I am asking you as a mother, ICP, and voter to travel Bill 10. It is not perfect yet, but there is hope for a suitable and obtainable goal to be able to meet with the bill. To accomplish this, this proposed Bill 10 must be travelled. Passing with 35 of the recommendations is not good enough for me in Ontario. Yours in caring, Jerry Ellery of Jerry's Home Daycare, a registered home business, Brampton. Let me speak to you now from Sophie Renault, a very upset Sudbury citizen. In a letter to Minister Sandals, she said, "I'm writing to you as a parent that has her child in home daycare. I urge you not to pass Bill 10. If my current daycare has no choice but to switch to a licensed childcare, she will have to charge their rates as well. That means I can't afford to put her in daycare, and I'm forced to quit my job to care for my child." I think Sophie Renault speaks for thousands of mothers across Ontario who will be negatively impacted by this legislation, and I believe that the member from Sudbury and I believe that this government owe it to Sophie to go to Sudbury to hear from her and to hear from those who are affected by this bill just like her. I want to talk about Emily Allison. She's from Bowmanville. Up until recently, she had a very strong advocate for her standing on this side of the House in John O'Toole. I know, having known John O'Toole and served with him, that Mr. O'Toole would be defending her today. Emily Allison writes this: "I am an independent childcare provider in Durham Region and the Durham Region spokesperson for the Coalition of Independent Childcare Operators of Ontario. Bill 10 proposes to include my 4-year-old son in my ratio, even though he is in school for 7 of my 9 open hours. This means that I will have to let go of a family who has been in my care for 2.5 years in order to remain a family legal independent daycare." She says at the very end, and I say this to the member from Durham, "I ask that you travel the bill during the winter break so that you can truly understand the ramifications of Ontario families, children, and providers." These are messages for members in Liberal ridings, Speaker. They are constituents who feel that if this bill does not travel across the province to speak to those who are impacted most, that is mothers and fathers who are working during the day and child care operators who are caring for their children during the day, then this bill will not be worth the paper it is written on, because it will have been done without the consent of the people that sent them to Queen's Park. I have another letter here from Joanne Houle. Joanne is from Oakville, another Liberal riding. She says, my name is Joanne Houle, and I am a home daycare provider in Oakville for 25 years. I've been married for 26 and have 2 children, a daughter who is 21 and a son who is 18. I have a current police check, as does my husband, my daughter, and my son. I also have CPR, which I renew every year. Speaker, listen to this line. I have had the privilege of helping parents raise over 50 children and still have contact with most of them. Speaker, this woman, Joanne Houle, feels a great deal of pride in the job she has done for over 25 years. The families of which she has been, of whom she's been in contact with over that period of time, are still her family. 50 children she's helped raise above and beyond the children that she has birthed herself. If the member from Oakville and the member from Durham and the member from Sudbury and the members from Brampton and the members from Guelph won't stand, and the members from Ottawa, with the exception of me, won't stand up for their constituents, I want to assure them I will, and the Ontario Progressive Conservative Caucus will, and our education critic, Garfield Dunlop, will stand up for you. And that is why we are calling for province-wide hearings in the following cities. We want to go to Hamilton. We want to go to Guelph. We want to go to Ottawa. We want to be in Kitchener, London, Windsor, and Sudbury, Speaker, in addition to the City of Toronto, because the people that are affected most by this legislation, the people who will be hurt by the 140,000 childcare spaces that will be slashed from this province, Speaker, those are the people that are mostly affected, and those are the people we want to hear from, and those are the people that the Liberals want to shut out of this process. And not only do they want to shut them out of the process by time allocating this bill so we can't talk about Bill 10, but they also want to ensure that the people who are affected most in suburban and rural Ontario that are outside of the downtown core here in Toronto are shut out of the debate, and I think that is wrong, and that is why I'm proud to stand up for them. I have another person here, Gillian Henderson, who's been quite active. She wrote to me as well. She also wrote to the Premier and to the Education Minister. She says this, and this is, I think, a well-known and established fact now. Currently, Bill 10 will limit spaces, raise fees, and provide no incentives for providers to license through existing for-profit agencies. There is no increased accountability, no registry. This bill is knee-jerk as a reaction to a lawsuit against the province. Please allow Bill 10 to travel the province. That is what democracy is, and that is what our children deserve. I couldn't agree more with Gillian. I think Gillian has it right. Gillian is speaking up on behalf of those who are childcare providers as well as those who have children. The final letter I want to read into the record before I talk about a meeting I had on Friday is from Megan Pear. Megan is from Lively, Ontario. She says, if Bill 10 passes, I will be forced to terminate care to 4 of my 7 part-time and full-time children. 2 of those children are twins. Now tell me, where will these 12-month-old twin boys go? And that's going to be a challenge now for this childcare operator, but also for the parents of these twins. I can tell you, Speaker, it wasn't so long ago when we had to set out, my husband and I, to find childcare for our daughter Victoria. Most people in this assembly will have remembered I arrived at Queen's Park with a brand new spanking baby. And she was a sweet little baby, and she is a sweet little girl now. We chose our childcare. We chose it as parents. We believed we had the responsibility to find adequate care for our child and quality care. We also believed it was our responsibility to ensure she was safe, but we had the choice. And what is happening with Bill 10 is that choice is being ripped away from parents choosing the care that they want for their child. They are taking away responsibility and they are taking away choice, all because the Ombudsman found that the Ministry of Education wasn't enforcing its own rules. He said, not us in the opposition, he said, the Ombudsman, that the government didn't do its job. So I had the opportunity to meet with the Ombudsman on Friday, and we had a long-ranging discussion about a number of pieces of legislation and a number of issues ranging from hydro to government accountability, and I took the opportunity to talk to him about Bill 10. And I talked to him about some of the allegations being made from the members opposite in the Liberal caucus, and some of the suggestions that the Minister of Education was making about unlicensed childcare being illegal, of which he has never said. But what he has said, and he has never, by the way, said that we should eliminate unlicensed childcare in the province of Ontario. I want that written into the record. I want the Minister of Education to acknowledge that, because he never once ever uttered the word that we should eliminate unlicensed childcare. That is what the minister wants to say. The minister wants to eliminate these 140,000 childcare spaces. Why? Because they want to bring in universal daycare into the back door, similar to what Paul Martin did back in the early 2000s, which was adamantly rejected not only by Ontarians but by all Canadians. Speaker, I propose that you allow this bill to travel, that the Minister of Education listen to the stakeholders, that we come back to this Assembly in the spring session and we talk about what will work, not what won't work, and we protect those 140,000 childcare spaces. In my final few minutes, I'd like to acknowledge the Opposition House Leader, Mr. Steve Clark from Leeds and Grenville, for the work he has done in order to try and make this bill travel, as well as the strong work by our education critic Garfield Dunlop, who has never once let up for one moment. Thank you.